Welcome, acolytes. Today I am reacting to The Death of Financial Censorship by It's Miover. I'm doing this specific thematic because, in my opinion, it's very important. I'm actually quite happy that SmilingLich reacted to it because it throws a lot more eyes on the situation than I could even, like right now, I don't reach even a smidge of the freaking ways SmilingLich can. So I'm happy that he actually did and reached for the thematic himself. He reacted to a video of this and this opened a few eyes. So yeah, good for that. But let's just see what how's it? It's Moiver says about this because I'm quite interested in his opinion. And by the way, like, subscribe, you know that shabbing, but also Agent of Social Media Chaos brought me this video. So, let's just start.
It happened to your favorite media, games, movies, anime. Across every industry, financial corporations are able to influence public ideology.
Choke you. They want to choke you out of business. We're not going to let that happen.
But what is behind it all? And who gave them this power? The good news is we might see an end to this nonsense.
As president, I will immediately shut down Operation Choke Point.
I'm gonna be honest, why would we see an end to this
nonsense?
As president, I will immediately shut down Operation Choke Point.
Operation Choke Point. I heard something about it because I actually tried to remember something out of it, but I just didn't. But hey, by the way, it's Miover. He grows. Good to see. I'm quite happy for him. So yeah.
And hopefully very soon. Okay, so we're no stranger to Japanese media platforms censoring themselves due to the regulation of Western financial companies. But I just saw news today that there was not just one, but two Japanese platforms that had to self-censor due to this issue. And yes.
Yeah, and this was actually a way bigger issue than I initially thought. Because this happens, by the way, not just to Japanese, but the thing is, if you're censored to the countries, like you're shipping something to the country, of course the rules of the country are a bit different, but this isn't a country they are catering to. This is an actual credit card company where you should say, F you, this isn't a good decision to make just because you actually make less money, even as the company. So honestly, what the F? And I got actually explained to me that in America that's like credit card companies have an extremely dominant position, so I really don't envy you. If you're in America in this kind of way, I don't envy you, because at any time it could just snap like that.
This is 100% an issue. In fact, I believe this is the most important issue happening to Japanese media right now. If you believe in what the antis, the quote-unquote shonen fans will tell you, you'll probably believe that this is great and you'll be clapping your hands in joy. But no, this is a total loss for freedom of expression.
Yeah, not just that. I agree with him that to a certain degree that yes, it is a loss to freedom of expression, and it's also a step towards way more corruption. Way more.
In artwork.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of things like video games, anime, Japanese media, then this very much concerns you. And I'm talking about the whole medium, not just Jujutsu Kaisen or whatever. The first platform we're going to be talking about is Toranoana, which is censoring games like visual novels, eroge, due to requests from Visa and MasterCard, the American payment companies, which you'll commonly see on your credit and debit card to do transactions with. Obviously, if you can't do transactions, you can't run a business, so they have no choice but to listen to the demands of those financial companies. Toranoana.
Yeah, if you want to go in the American market, then yes. It's now, the things that I know now, it's brutal, man. Oh, it's brutal. I really wonder that you don't have alternatives, or that the alternatives just aren't really there. That's something that I was surprised and shocked by.
One is a store that specializes in doujin material, so think something like indie video games made by small creators, except, Visa and MasterCard, they care more about the explicit material, so visual novels, more focused on eroge. Now, I'm just going to be straight up, like, in terms of visual novels and stuff like that, I'm actually a straight up normie. Like, I saw this meme about Pinterest-chan, people were talking about. That was about as much exposure as I got to, please tell me it's like Totono or something like that. It probably is.
Mate, it's irrelevant.
I don't even know what it's called. Even if you don't really care, you should still care. Because it's this type of content, the most disturbing, violent, sexual, controversial, that serves as a gate, not just for gatekeeping tourists, but a floodgate that, if opened, will open a flood from Pandora's box that basically will encroach further and further on the freedom of speech and expression.
And by the way, also the next point, I agree with him to some degree. Because there are some things I wouldn't definitively allow, but actually finding the exact point where it's just the exact point where you actually defend the people you want to defend with those decisions and just totally overdo it and open the floodgates to actually destroy everything, it's such a smidge. It's so hard to find. So mostly agree, but also on some points maybe my points are a bit finer. But
in anime, almost every season now will have some lolly character or fan service that brings out all the moral puritans. It's either allowed or not allowed. And for all those Dragon Ball Gogetas out there who think otherwise, go and call the cops. What are they going to do about it? They're probably going to laugh. But the problem is that on social media...
By the way, no. You're not in the UK, my friend. In the UK, well... they gonna F you up. Like, I actually heard a man of mine, a friend, associate that I talk sometimes in the UK. The guy actually got freaked up with a cucumber because he's a bit of an edgy guy, so yeah. And because the police officer came in, forgot his weapon for some reason, so he just grabbed a cucumber and freaking melted his face. It was I am laughing. He was like, he himself left in the afterthought, but it basically didn't go nowhere because of the assault. But in the UK, that's
Are people obsessed with virtue signaling that they'll go and do things like mass report creators from the other side of the world just to take down their content. And of course, there are private corporations, so freedom of speech works differently. But the policies of Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or any other corporation reflect the government and the customers, aka all of us. And some of the biggest customers, the terminally online Zoomers, have grown up in an environment that normalizes censorship. Things like hate speech or misinformation are constantly under threat from being censored by the government.
Yeah, as I said, I think I know what he means. But I also think that he would agree that there is a certain... Don't get me wrong, I am an edgy guy myself. I understand the point of no return, I'll just call it like that. Because some people will overdo it. That's just what happens. I am not a purist, by the way. I am not a free speech purist, but I am very open about everything. To a certain degree. The only thing I don't like is if you argue with someone and then just it degrades to insults. That's just not productive, so... That's basically mine. But also, I mean harassing. I mean, there is a difference between calling someone a bitch on X, on Twitter, and actually constantly talking about these people and messaging them even after they got told to just stop it. I think us normal people, acolytes, can actually see the difference between those two things. But most well, woke people think those two things are the exact same thing, and that's just not true.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Now, you might be like, yeah, that sounds good, but the problem is who controls what is classified as misinformation or hate speech? A very obvious problem.
Yep.
And that's coming from potentially our future president, Tim
Agree.
Walz.
Yep.
He's on the ticket for vice president, but if the Democrats get elected, he's expected to take the place of the president at any time. But just looking at his running mate, Kamala Harris, if she becomes president, we could see social media getting further censored.
We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat.
Yeah, and she's and the Democrats are the last people who actually should get their hands on it. This is the thing, what I say. It's an extreme. If you go extreme on one part, then no, you shouldn't censor it. You shouldn't have to say who is actually wrong or right, because you yourself, this woman, she herself is an extremist to a certain degree. Sorry, it is what it is. And, or maybe she talks for extremists. Let's just say it like this. And if you go this far on the extreme, you really shouldn't even have a smidge of power. But sadly, well.
To our democracy. If you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a...
Through enforcement, our future president could establish a surveillance state online, further than what we've seen before, by making the platforms themselves accountable. Who could have thought that the leader of the free world could be not so free after all? Now, going back to anime and games, America is one of the largest markets for Japan, so what goes on here dictates what content they make. But unfortunately, America is one of the few places on Earth that has such freedoms with our First Amendment. And unfortunately, the global elites of the world, such as the World Economic Forum, are looking to take this down. Even entertainment like anime is a censorship target from the United Nations. You can't be like, oh, but what about this? There's nuance involved, okay? This one is sexualizing minors. Like, shut the frick. Like, it's legal or it's not legal. That's it, okay? You're either for freedom of expression or you're not. And before some woke leftists...
Mate, don't go in the extremes. As I said, just look in the direction that nobody of us likes, to the woke direction. Look at this effing extreme. You don't want that. There are finer points in everything we have to actually look at, even in freedom of expression. Maybe there's none for a purist, but if you're a purist in that case, I am sorry to say, but it's easily mishandled. It's easily abused to a degree where people will just literally off themselves constantly. And by the way, this is one of the things I don't like. I should just be allowed to say kill themselves because it's a normal sentence. But sadly on YouTube, the video is already flagged probably, so there's that. But as I said, if you harass someone, that's the extreme. You really have to get in the deep and nitty-gritty of it.
And when I say woke leftist, it's not like I'm trying to promote any type of like political position here. I know you're going to look at my YouTube channel and be like, yeah, right. So before these woke leftists be like, oh, you're against this censorship, but then you're going to be censoring the erasure of you know what. There's a big difference, okay? So there's a difference between me buying a doujin visual novel or whatever and just playing it in the comfort of my own house versus some of these policies that the far gone have come up with.
Oh my, yeah, this, no, just, it's not because they are gay. It's because they are freaking acting, no, don't go naked on the streets. Nobody does that. Come on, who goes out on the streets and there are freaking children. If there was a guarantee for me that this thing would be only seen by adults, I wouldn't have anything against it. But there are literal children that can see this. Come on.
That they display in the public eye. And
by the way, where is it? I only have the 5-second skip. I don't know where the other stuff is. This isn't a normal furry mask. This is fetish gear. So, yeah.
And some of those things are funded with public money.
Yep.
Okay, taxpayer
That's the worst
money
thing
from
about it,
people
by
like
the
you
way.
and
Damn.
I. Versus if
I mean, if... That's correct. As soon as you found stuff like this with public money, you can as well just throw it in the freaking... You know what? Don't burn it, give it to me. I take it. Because I'm gonna be honest, before the government money will be spent on stuff like that, give it to me, at least I will have some fun with it.
I just buy a game with my own money and play it in my own...
No, even better. I would take the money and actually entertain you people way better. So I could actually stop my job, pay off everything I can, go to the situation I want to be in, just entertain you better.
Private place. So you can't claim freedom of expression when it comes to that type of stuff, okay? It might seem like I'm comparing apples to oranges, but at the end of the day, if you're okay with them censoring quote-unquote Epstein Gooner bait, well, then you should get ready for them to censor your rainbow, furry, Steven Universe, whatever you guys watch.
The fuck is this?
You get the point. Hey guys, me over here. Quick update. So it takes me forever to make these videos, and by the time I'm finishing up, Toranoana had an update on the situation. So they're shutting down Visa and MasterCard payments, which is a huge win because they don't have to listen to the censorship policies of those companies. In doing so, they're missing out on some of the money from the West because at least in places like the United States, Visa and MasterCard are predominantly used. This is a great thing because it means instead of catering to the West, they're catering to the Japanese domestic market. Instead of censoring and removing content to sell it here, they decided to focus on their own country. Even though the West has a lot of potential for growth, the potential for eroge is even higher because you know the censorship isn't stopping here. What if in the future some best-selling game gets removed just because Visa and MasterCard told them to? They don't want to miss out on those sales. Hopefully this is a permanent change and more Japanese companies do this, but the only issue is finding
By the way, if you don't know who this little schnauzer guy is, it's, in theory, a godlike being that's all-powerful. In Berserk. Watch Berserk. I'm gonna call him... I don't remember how he's called. Oh my F. Okay, I'm gonna call him Lord Schnauzer. Lord Schnauzer is the most... The most powerful being in the entire Berserk universe. Presumably.
alternative payment from overseas, which we'll be discussing in latter parts of this video, so stay tuned for that. We're going to move on from the censorship of Toranoana via Visa and MasterCard, and we're going to move on to the second company, which is the censorship of Denpasoft via the banks. So banks and payment platforms, they're both financial institutions, but they're slightly different. So banks are where you store all your money, and the the payment platforms like Visa, it goes for point A to point B. It's a transaction. So slightly different, but at the end result, in these cases, they're used for censorship. And I'm going to talk about why I believe that the culprits
and that's, by the way,
both of these cases are still the same thing.
There he is.
The case with
My lord.
Denpasoft, I want to say, is a lot worse than the previous example. So let's take a look at their official statement. So they said that they were contacted by their bank to remove certain titles that match criteria that the bank had flagged. Considering the situation we are being put in, we have compiled with these requests out of an overabundance of caution. And you see they have a list of affected titles, which I might have to censor some of these. I don't know, but like you can tell why you can tell why the banks don't like this type of stuff. Like I'm seeing this Holy Slavic, yes, Slavic.
Kagurama Games, just watch this. Hipponic. Trapped on Monster Island. Okay.
Academy.
Okay.
During this time, users who have already purchased the above titles will not be able to download them either. Unfortunately, there is no timetable as to when these issues will be resolved. So basically, the reason why this is much worse than the previous ones is that they didn't really have any heads up for customers, and they just deleted these games off of their platform.
Yeah. Revenge of the Orcs, Flag of Big Green. Big Green Rooster.
So even if you already paid for it, you can't access it anymore. This is one of the problems about digital media versus physical media, and why a lot of things moving digital is actually bad, especially when it comes to these centralized platforms. So this could happen to anything like Steam also. Let's take a look at another response from Denpasoft. So we have a thread from Denpasoft Chris, which I'm assuming is a staff member, talking about how, considering what happened to DL site earlier this year, it wasn't entirely surprising. Then they had their official statement. And something pretty interesting. Before anyone suggests it, no, crypto isn't the solution either. You can find as many random ways to take payment.
A very, very wise human being. Good.
But if the banks can just simply shut down your account, where exactly are these payments going to go? It's not like we can tell people to send us payments in cash. Funny thing is, this isn't their first time getting censored. They had to deal with getting kicked off from Shopify previously. So Shopify is a platform where you can create your own store to buy and sell goods and services. But Shopify is a centralized company, so they get to choose who gets to buy and sell using those services. So Denpasoft moved away from Shopify and created their own custom website, but that still didn't solve a big issue, which was money. The only way they were able to mitigate that was by accepting cryptos such as Bitcoin, but that's just a band-aid to the greater problem, because the root problem is that we live in a cash-based society, so you still need your US dollar, your yen, your whatever at the end of the day, and these finance companies, they can censor your every move. So how do you move away from those platforms? So there's a company called JCB, and it's an alternative to Visa/MasterCard that is somewhat popular in Japan, but it's not really popular. I don't even know if it operates overseas. So that takes care of the
I mean, there is a chance here that the GCB could actually get way more popular by allowing stuff like this. So why not? Let's try it.
transactions part. So you get it from A to B. But the problem is, once you have that transaction in there, where are you going to store it? You still have to store it in a bank. So the bank can always still cut you off. Now, they're saying you can use crypto, but like Denpasoft Chris says here, the banks can just shut down your account. So if you want to put money in and buy crypto or take money out of crypto, the bank can still shut down that. And the reason is because the banks can literally censor you for anything. But I think that might change soon. So why do banks even have this much power? It seems almost borderline illegal. Like, we already see it happening with the woke financing, causing things like DEI to be added in video games. And that's not even up for debate. This is just simply facts. But my favorite example is what happened with Canada during the COVID pandemic. To stop the protest, the Canadian government told the banks to cut off access from these protesters, meaning that these protesters would have no money and they would essentially have to...
I didn't know that. How fucked up is this? People are already suffering and you're doing what the fuck? Well, the next bastard that comes across and says that Canada is a good country, yeah.
Starve to death. But these protesters came up with a new solution, which was cryptocurrencies. But even that solution was short-lived, because time and time and again, the main enemy always shows up, which is the banks. The banks just took the blacklist and gave it to the crypto companies and said, you better listen and blacklist these people from your company. And, like, what else are you going to do? Like, just like what we saw with Denpasoft and these Japanese companies, you basically have to listen to the banks. Now, why do the banks have this much power? Like, when did this precedent even start? Now, to find out, we have to look at something called Operation Choke Point. This sounds like something straight out of Call of Duty or some video game, but it's actually a real thing. So the incident with these Canadian protesters was due to the Canadian government, but Operation Choke Point is an actual operation that was created by the United States Department of Justice in 2013. Operation Choke Point was this directive created by the Obama administration meant to create a choke point, or they wanted to basically choke out these businesses that they thought were committing fraud and whatnot. But it turned out to be a little different. So some people have criticized it, such as this, what's his name? Frank Keating, a former governor of Oklahoma who served in the Department of Justice during the Reagan administration. The clandestine Operation Choke Point had more in common with a purge of ideological foes than a regulatory enforcement action. It targeted wide swaths of businesses with little regard for whether legal businesses were swept up and harmed. In fact, that seemed to be the goal. So keep that in mind. The purge of ideological foes.
Yep.
So that is exactly what we're seeing going on with anime, manga, video games, etc. And they don't care whether it's legal or illegal, because it's not following their ideology. I'm almost certain that there's a central authority, like a higher level power that is telling people to censor certain things that don't agree with their ideology. The reason I believe this is because, remember that game company with the list that they were deleting? Denpasoft. One of them is, let's just say, Slavic. I'm saying that for certain reasons. There was an anime like a year ago about an isekai harem, which also had that word in its title. And when they made that anime in the West, they changed the name. Only in the West. But in Japan, they kept the name. So there must be a reason, it's not a coincidence that they're censoring these things with the same word in them, right? It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, of course
There's
not.
someone higher up telling them to do that.
Yeah,
and that type of thing is something like Operation Choke Point. With the news of Operation Choke Point being public, it was only a matter of time before something was to be done. Yeah. And that thing happened during Donald Trump's first presidency. And I say first because he's going to get a second one. During Trump's presidency, he stripped Operation Choke Point of power. But this was short-lived, because something very bad happened, and that was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They got elected. Biden and Harris are strictly against cryptocurrencies, and in an effort to stop the spread, they've allegedly reinstated Operation Choke Point.
Thank you.
Many are dubbing this Operation Choke Point 2.0, leading us to the current state of the world, but this could change very soon. See, the tide is shifting in the political sphere. The Democrats are actually starting to embrace cryptocurrencies, but not in the way that we want. When you heard cryptocurrency, you're probably thinking of something like Bitcoin, which is decentralized and censorship resistant. But what a lot of these government officials want isn't exactly a cryptocurrency. It's a CBDC, central bank digital currency. A central bank digital currency will allow the government to practically do mass surveillance on its citizens, and it's something that countries like China have started implementing. If you combine something like the central bank digital currency with like a social credit score, you can already see the catastrophe that this could have. Fortunately, some government officials are against CBDCs.
I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin. And I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency.
Donald Trump has stated that he is against the creation of a central bank digital currency, and if he's elected and keeps his promises, we will never see one during his presidency.
CBDC. There will never be a CBDC while I'm president of the United States.
In an effort to stop crypto, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have inadvertently, or maybe on purpose, given more power to central banks.
The day I take the oath of office, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's anti-crypto crusade will be over. It will end. It'll be done. It'll be done. The moment I'm sworn in, the persecution stops and the weaponization ends against your...
But this may soon be reverted. In fact, Donald Trump claims that he will shut down Operation Chokepoint 2.0.
As president, I will immediately shut down Operation Chokepoint 2.0. They want to choke you. They want to choke you out of business. We're not going to let that happen. And no longer will your government sit by and watch.
Obviously, we can't prove anything, but we can make some assumptions. Even if there's no secret cabal controlling the anime and the games, the eroge that you consume, one thing is for certain. Trump's pro-crypto stance is going to allow these companies like Denpasoft that already accept crypto to further adopt this technology so that way they can free themselves from central banking.
Yeah.
The timeline certainly seems to make sense. From the start of Operation Chokepoint...
And by the way, I am still not for crypto. I despise it because the idea behind it is good. But how it runs right now, it's basically 999 times out of 1,000, it's just a scam. And the one time it's fine, good.
Point under Obama in 2013 to now in 2024, at the very least, no matter your political position, one thing is clear. The US government, through the financial industry, is able to control businesses to conform with certain ideology. If we want media like movies, games, and anime to have true freedom of expression, it's important that this control be stopped. To make anime great again, we need to make America great again. This was a Me Over video. Make sure to like, comment.
And by the way, yes, even if I live in Germany, you still need to make America run good, because no matter what you do, America influences other countries. It is what it is. It bleeds over. But as it is, acolytes, good night.